All right, welcome to the fourth and final game of not just this review session, but of the season. Like, up this time is Gordian Quest, an epic deck-building RPG inspired by old-school classics by Ultima and D&D, using modern gaming concepts like roguelite elements and turn-based strategic combat. None of those are really all that modern, but let's not split hairs. Lead and nurture parties of heroes, forge bonds, and discover new skills among them. Guide them to unravel the curses laid upon the lands. Right. So, as the blurb mentioned, this is a card-based, turn-based RPG. I think card-based is a good way to describe it, because this game's a bit unusual in terms of card-based RPGs. They use the word deck building. I can't entirely say that's accurate. Or rather, the deck building here is really respective in terms of card games. And what I mean that is, you don't assemble a deck. You actually have you select from 4 presets based off of the character class and play style of that character class. It's an interesting system nonetheless, certainly. But if you're coming from, let's say a Magic the Gathering background or something like that, an actual card game, I'd say look elsewhere, because this isn't really a card game. That's more an aesthetical thing than anything else. That isn't to say that you can't do some deck building here, some actual deck building. Like you will have plenty of opportunities to add cards to your deck via the unlocking of skills or certain items, and you can also increase the power or the skill set of those cards, and you can select new cards in a roundabout way. That is to say, if you burn off a card permanently, you will get what they call a respect point. And you can use that respect point to choose a new card, free and clear. Or, redraw, something like that. So, like I said, it's definitely more role-playing game than card game in that sense. But it still works. It still works, and it does provide a surprisingly deep RPG. Now, this isn't the most common type of game we review on the program, but we do get indie-born RPGs of various sorts on the program on the regular. And usually a consistent problem I have with those is depth. In that a lot of those are really shallow, for lack of a better term. Not this one. This one's doing even though it's not going full on card game, full on mana pools and points, tapping, that kind of thing, or even worrying about how do I put this? You don't have to worry about draws, graveyards, other card affectations. Like, you will draw out a certain number of cards for a turn, yes, but it's like when you use a card, it doesn't go to the graveyard. It will very often show up the next turn among other cards. which is probably a cardinal sin in terms of actual games of this type. But once again, that's not really what this is going for. Though I do feel like I do need to belabor that point because it does go pretty hard with the card aesthetics and stuff. So I would not blame a person for getting confused at how little card game there is in this card game. But, you know, the cards are basically stand-ins for various, you know, attack, defense, magic, you know, the kinds of things that you would do in a role-playing game. And if you're seeing the battlefield, that is interspersed with a grid system that operates, let's say, like Mega Man Battle Network. Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. Because you can.
Do you move around on it actionally, or do you just tell people to go on a turn? Okay.
It's all turn-based. This is full-on turn-based. And, you know, you do have agility points to determine who goes first. But it still operates like Battle Network in the sense that you're on a grid. You can move your characters. Attacks you have to be in alignment with either the columns or the rows, and so on and so forth. And also comes into play with certain character classes. Like one of the characters I picked was a thief who specialized in traps. So two of his attacks were the caltrops attack and the tripwire. The caltrops that did a pretty hefty amount of damage, from being honest here. The tripwire, I believe that set in vulnerability that made a enemy unit more susceptible to attack, or rather, if you attacked that unit, you would do X amount of hit points more in damage. Like, and that you could do that in conjunction with this other card called the Lure, which moved a enemy unit around, and you would use the Lure to pull that enemy into the caltrops or the tripwire.
That's Lure with a U, right?
Lure, yes. Yeah. And, you know, there are other attacks and defenses like this, like I'm trying to remember, like the Nature's Bounty, which provided I'm not exactly sure what that did. Probably why I didn't use that card all that much. Like it provided, I don't know, defense space, or like there was this one, I forget the card's name, but it dragged a character like the Lure, but it provided defense instead of vulnerability and potentially damage. So, yeah, movement and positioning. Also, there were ways to put elemental affectations on spots. You know, ice, fire, poison, which do the kind of damage because the way elemental damage works in this game is. It's on a how do I put this? It's on a timer, or like when you inflict, say, burning damage, it doesn't hit immediately. It'll hit, you know, obviously, depending on how much defense is on such an attack. But you know, putting that aside. When an elemental attack hits, it will do the damage, and it'll be represented in the life bar by, like, you know, green for poison, blue for ice, red for fire, that sort of thing. And it'll be that way until you get to the creature's turn or your turn. You can have this happen to you, and you will then take that damage. Now, it's a bit of a curious system, since I guess if you do have healing, you can circumvent that. But the thing is, like, at least on the enemy side, healing was really rare. In fact, I don't think I ever saw the enemy draw out a healing card or a potion. I mean, I had healing stuff. But, yeah, the enemy, like, that was really weird, now that I think about it. And, like I said, there's a whole bunch I could actually explain about this battle system. It's really robust. It's and in-depth. Again, surprisingly so. But there are other aspects of the game outside of combat. Indeed, like you've got the roguelike elements, or the roguelite, I think, is pertaining to like the world map or maybe the dungeons, that kind of procedural generation, or the events that you can unlock in terms of combat, or there are other non-combat affairs that you can hit up, so to speak. Like there's the Explore event, which is you're on a map. You got like 4 flags, and you plant them down, and you try to move to various places where you can unlock goodies and try to avoid the enemies or the traps. You got the shrine, which allows you to pray and unlock a special encounter where you can get a legendary bit of armor, which happened to me. Let's see. There are the events where there's some sort of encounter where it takes on the form of all things traditional pen and paper RPG. As in, you encounter something, you have to select your character, and you have to roll for initiative, an actual dice roll.
That's usually roll for initiative once, but whatever. There's more than one tabletop RPG. Sorry.
Yeah, or you roll to versus, like if you want to put it into D&D terms, you roll for versus that thing.
Yeah, you roll to hit.
You roll to hit. You roll to dodge. You roll to sneak. That kind of thing. And it's based off of one of 3 stats: strength, intelligence, and dexterity. And depending on your stat set, you will get modifiers in either direction. And 20 is an automatic pass. 1 is an automatic fail. Like I said, traditional pen and paper segment here. But it's a pretty minor part of the game. All things being told. And yeah, in terms of character classes, a pretty standard set from what I saw. Admittedly, I did not switch my characters, mainly because of the RPG paradox. Now granted, from what I saw, experience wasn't a concern, but that's not where my concerns lie. I suppose to explain what the RPG character paradox is, for those who haven't encountered it, it's the inability to switch off characters. Because, to put simply, the characters you spend the most time with in an RPG, they tend to be the characters that will have the most growth. They're the characters that are going to have all the current stats, the best weapons, that kind of thing. Now, it's less of a problem in more modern RPGs, because like the big thing in say you go back to the 16-bit era, experience wasn't really shared among characters. So, if you spent
not ones that weren't in battle, you mean?
Yes, exactly. And I had the same concerns here, not with experience. Like levels seem to go pretty steadily. It's more how in terms of cards, and especially the grid, the skill grid, because instead of gaining experience points to put into stats, you will, though I do believe that happens, much more of your focus is going to be on the skill system, which is definitely a modern trope. And, it's like you will, it's not a skill tree, it's a grid, as in it's laid out grid style. And it'll branch out grid style. So you have a bit more latitude in what you can unlock. But you still do have to unlock a node to unlock another node. Skill grids are fairly common, I found, in modern games. But, and the unlockables can be stat based, increasing your hit points, increasing your your intelligence, dexterity, a stat in that direction, or they're much more. I'd say the majority of nodes are card based. Fairly common is like skill mastery, what they call. You can level up cards, and it is, as they say, basically, on the basic, it's the cards will protect you more, do more damage, that sort of deal. Though on higher levels, you can pick the, like, one of two branches, like this card will hit harder or hit more frequently, something like that. Give one example. Like, or, you can summon an animal with more agility or more strength, and so on and so forth. And, that is all an investment. And I got this, once again, I was too worried about switching out characters to test to see how, if party members who weren't in the party kept their skill sets going, or if they were, or I'd imagine how it would be done is just like a pile of points. The point is, I really didn't see too much in the way of needing to shift characters. Although I gotta admit, up until the very point where I had to stop playing, the game was pretty easy. It's like, honestly, the last battle I was playing, that was the first time I actually felt legitimately challenged. 12 hours in the middle of like Act 2. So, I guess that is a point in this game's favor in terms of, it's got a real gradual skill curve. And let me see. In terms of the graphics, some really beautiful artwork, though to the review that said that this looks like a AAA game or anything, like, no, it doesn't. Like AAA games don't use this much 2D artwork these days. Anyway, and the music is rather good. Lot of chants and stuff. And like I said, I suppose I could go on and on about the minutia of this game because there's a lot of it, but I think I have covered the baselines well enough to get the point across. So in terms of pricing, this game clocks in at $20. I don't think it's on the consoles yet. I think that's I think I saw that was being planned for next year because this game just came out of early access not too like last month. But is this game worth $20? Absolutely. It's one of the better games I've played this year. And probably one of the best indie RPGs I've played for review for this show. I wouldn't say it would best anything like any of its inspirations or a Final Fantasy title or anything like that, but it's a really good RPG that manages to carve its own niche pretty expertly by, ironically enough, not going down the route of a card game. I know that seems counterintuitive, but if you play the game, it works. It works out really well. And it's got a impressive amount of complexity without going into convolution, which is always important. Because, there's a lot of meat here, but, I never felt overwhelmed by choice or mechanics or anything like that. That is a really tricky act to pull. So kudos to the team for pulling that off. Right, so any questions, comments, or concerns over Gordian Quest?
I think I'm good.
Hello?
It looks pretty interesting. I may give it a try sometime, but...
Yeah, I think I'm good.
All right, so yeah, that'll about do it for this review session. And indeed, we are coming close to the end of the season. As we just have our last show on Wednesday, August 3rd. And we'll be welcoming our good friend John Pickett of Manga Gamer to the program, as we'll be talking about the latest in Manga Gamer's visual novels. I think they just had a whole bunch of announcements at Otakon, and there was a couple of other visual novels he mentioned. Let's see. Yeah, it was... he wants to talk about Higurashi Ray, Patient S. It looks like and like I said, a whole bunch of Otakon announcements. It's probably going to be our usual fare with John. And no episode of MSP this week because we had the season finale of MSP last week. No Friday show. It's like nothing beyond that until later in August. Which is actually going to open up with a Friday multiplayer fun fest. But, we'll get to that when we get to that. So until Wednesday, I shall wish you good gaming.